Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for another podcast. UFC goes down this weekend in London. That feels good to say. I feel like I haven't said that in ages, but it's not really been that too long. But they're back in London with a big card. Former champion Leon Edwards in the main event against Sean Brady. Should be a tasty one in the main event. Oscar, firstly though, I'm shooting over to you. How are you?
I'm great, man. I'm happy for you that you get to go and see the UFC live in person. I know the PFL is coming to Chicago in June. I'll be there for sure. The UFC is likely to come to Chicago as well, so it's a great time to be a UFC fan. And the UFC has, I feel like they may have redeemed themselves with the fans this time around. Last time they made you guys stay up to an ungodly hour. This time around they're doing the local time, and they have a great card for you guys.
Yeah, about fucking time they gave us something good. But yeah, it's great to see the main event. Leon Edwards versus obviously Sean Brady should be a good one. Some banging fights as well in the prelims. Domestically, should be a good night for the UK fans or Irish fans. But yeah, firstly, before we get to that though, we do have an Apex card to talk about. A card without any fans to talk about. So let's get into that firstly. We talked about it before we went on air. Not too much really to talk about in terms of good fights, but we had fights nonetheless, and some were good, some were bad. We'll talk about obviously the main event, Roman Dolidze getting the win over Marvin Vettori, which was kind of a scrappy main event. Two guys just pretty much going at it, slinging and banging, throwing some shots, both taking some really really big shots. And we talked about it last week. Marvin Vettori is never going to get knocked out. This guy's got a chin of absolute steel. I don't know what it would take for Marvin Vettori to go down or even get knocked out. It's ridiculous. Oscar, though, talk to me about Roman Dolidze sort of getting one back against Marvin Vettori. A tough, gritty fight in the middleweight division in the main event.
So one of the big issues I had with Dolidze coming into the fight was his cardio was lackluster and his volume was pretty low because he was relying on these power shots. He fixed both things on this night. The cardio was looking good because he was pushing the pace, throwing at a high volume, and it appeared that he had more gas in the tank than Vettori. So I really commend what Dolidze did in the camp because he's a better fighter now. And in this fight, he really showed, I would say, slightly improved technique. He's a little more of a berserker in those other fights. This time around, he was a lot more technical, I would say, as technical as Roman can be. So yeah, this was surprising to me, and also Vettori coming off that shoulder surgery for sure was a factor, and also those fouls were plentiful. Roman was given multiple warnings, and he kept on fouling him. I think it was a total of 5 fouls.
Absolutely. Marvin Vettori losing, I think, for the first time back-to-back in his whole career. Tough spot for him now.
Yeah, the Adesanya loss, I feel like really was where he had his shot to get to the big time, and after that, it's just been up and down. And this really was, I would say, the most crushing loss of his career.
Absolutely. Co-main event, we had Chidrin Duquani versus Alessio Selecki. Knee and elbows. We talked about Chidrin Duquani can be powerful. Kind of showed it, early on in his career. Had a few losses. Now on back on a run inside the UFC. 3 wins back to back against Reece McKee, Jared Gooden, and now Selecki, which was a great win for him. Getting the finish as well. He did miss weight, I believe, but other than that, getting the victory though, big for him. Oscar, big win, 3 wins back to back in a row now. He's a good guy to have in the welterweight division. I feel like if you're going to throw prospects in front of him, he can definitely maybe upset for you.
Yeah, Chidi is a very entertaining fighter. He's always going to be going for the kill on the feet. And I just pointed out that he had so many advantages to reach the height, the age, and it all compounded into a brutal knee that sent Zaleski toppling. So Chidi as an underdog is definitely a fun bet because he's either going to lose spectacularly or win spectacularly.
Yeah, it was a great fight to see. Chidrin Khan, as you mentioned, always good to watch. 3 wins for him now, back into the 3 wins back to back. So good stuff for him. He's in a good spot. Hernandez, he gets back to winning ways, I do believe, against Kurt Halabau, gets the unanimous decision victory I take that back. 2 wins now against Austin Hubbard and Kurt Hudderbell. Conveniently, both on the same The Ultimate Fighter season, so that's quite cool. Damon Blackshear, he gets the Kimura win against Cody Gibson. Damon Blackshear, I like what he's about. We talked about obviously, last year he got them 2 losses. But other than that, he comes in there, he looks for a scrap, and he gets a lot of finishes as well. He had that twister against Jose, beat Cody Salmon, and obviously now Cody Gibson. There's a lot of finish. If you look at his record inside the UFC, only maybe 1 decision, 2 decisions despite Basharat, and a loss against Mario Batista. Well, 3 decisions. But this guy comes in, he puts his heart out on the line, and he got another finish against Cody Gibson. I'm impressed with Damon. I think he's not the top level at 135 pounds, but I think he has some talent to be outside.
Yeah, I would say he's one of the few guys that actively searches for submissions. You get these wrestlers, they just want that control time, want that dominant position. But Damon Blackshear really goes for it. And I like that about him. As you mentioned, he's not going to be a ranked guy, but I think he's going to stick around for a very long time.
Yeah, Brenton Haribo, he also got a submission, Kimura. And you picked this one last week as well. You talked about Dair, I talked about Dair, coming 10-0, unblemished record, undefeated. The Brazilian went in there, man, and sort of got his way with him. And now if you're looking at news and you're keeping up to date on your phone, his opponent Dair actually just tested positive and now banned for 2 whole years. So interesting.
Yeah, that's not a surprise to me. I feel like he had a fraudulent record coming in, and Brenton Hibert with that UFC experience, that grappling edge. There was just so many advantages, and to see when you see the line now of -400 for DR, you kind of laugh at it.
Absolutely, and I think Brenton might actually be booked straight away against. Is he Paul Craig?
Is he? No, Paul Craig did he get somebody? No, Paul Craig got somebody else, but Brenton did get booked straight away. I forget who it was. You might be able to see if you click on his Tapology profile right now.
Yeah, I just had a quick look there. I can't see it, unfortunately. I will have a look. But yeah, we'll talk about Kevin Valanos. We talked about obviously how good he looks. 15-1. The only loss comes out, I believe it was Gene Silva. And obviously he's gone on to do some decent things inside the UFC, so the fighting nerds, etc. But since that loss now, it's been 4 wins back to back to back, and he's sort of looking good looking better every sort of single win. I think he was going to beat Sungwoo Choi. I think it was just a matter of time of if and when he knocks him out or submits him. Unfortunately, Sungwoo Choi was the slaughter in this fight. It was just a matter of when. Kevin Valanos is good. I'd like to see him get a decent step up, 145 pounds. He's got a very great record, 15-1. The Argentinian obviously calling out Gene Silva. I don't think the UFC will do that. I think the UFC will wait maybe until their top 5, top 10 material, and that could be a main event of a fight night card, 100%.
Yeah, Vallejos is probably going to be the guy, if we ever look back at this card, this is going to be the guy we're talking about because he's going to have such a great career. He's so young, and he has a lot of tools that I think will take him far. And one of the big ones being that massive punching power and that speed, which he put to good use here against Sungwoo Choi, who has been a very good striker in the UFC so far. And for this not to even be competitive is a massive statement.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got Wilder Acosta as well, getting the win against Ryan Spann, putting the lights out. It felt like Ryan Spann, moving up from heavyweight. You talked about it last week as well. He put on a lot, didn't he? Too slow, got hit, got knocked out. Maybe the jump to heavyweight might have been too much. When you go up to heavyweight, you're getting hit by some big boys. Waldo is not even the biggest at heavyweight, and he hit him hard and he put him out, and it was a filthy knockout from Waldo.
Yeah, I think Ryan Spann was not showing the discipline necessary to be his best self. Woods MMA says, I've got Sean Brady. You're on Lenny's side, and I think that's the losing side, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, it's weird. As it being the English guy, and I'm picking Sean Brady, and you're the American, you're picking Leon Edwards. That's quite funny.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that soon. We haven't got too many to go through here on the card. We had Carlos Vera as well, beating the undefeated guy. You picked this last week. Another solid pick for you, Oscar. Carlos Vera went in there.
I actually did pick Musasa here, but Carlos Vera shocked the world. Carlos Vera shocked the world here. He was the biggest underdog on the card, and he just chokes out a -800 favorite like it's nothing. This guy came in from the Ultimate Fighter and nobody expected anything of him. And to get a bonus like that, I think is awesome.
Absolutely. My apologies. I thought you picked that last week. My brain's gone fuzzy. It's been a long week. Andre Lima, he got the rear naked choke. But the night itself did start off quite well. I know you did pick this one though.
Yeah.
It was Carly Jadis. You picked her to win. Obviously beat the undefeated woman, and she knocked her out. And obviously Patricia Cashier, the zombie as we call her, filthy, absolutely naughty uppercut straight down the middle, knocks out Jocelyn Nunez. But talk to me about them first two, because usually in women's MMA, most likely or not, it's going to decision. But these two fights, fantastic knockouts.
Yeah, remember last week you were like, I would never pick a finish in a women's MMA fight. And for the first time ever, we get two back-to-back first-round knockouts, and they completely shut you down there. So I think you should be more open in picking the finishes next time.
Maybe, who knows? Until I come to a women's fight and I'll pick a decision again. But yeah, the card itself, we had a few moments, but ideally out of 10, not the greatest of card. We had a decent main event, obviously, a little bit of implications, top 10 implications. Marvin Vettori, falling 2 losses back to back, the first time, I believe, in his career. So maybe something to look out for Marvin Vettori. Does he move up potentially 205 pounds? But then again, not the biggest of middleweights.
Yeah, I think at 205 they might actually be able to crack that chin. So I think for Vettori, I think a lot of it is he keeps on switching fight camps because he's losing the confidence. He's trying to find something that he can't really find. I think maybe if he had stayed at his original gym in Kings and Maine, maybe he could have. Yeah, he switched gyms twice. He went from California to Vegas. Now he's at ATT in Florida. So, he's not even gotten comfortable.
Yeah, interesting to see where Marvin Vettori goes from here. But we'll talk about what's happening this weekend. We've got some absolute banger fight cards. But firstly, I want to talk about what's happening before, which is tomorrow night. Cage Warriors 186. We've got Harry Hardwick in the main event. Oscar, this is all probably going to fly over your head. But if you're a UK fan, domestically, this is a fantastic card to get yourself warmed up for the UFC on Saturday. Luckily, I'm going to both of them. So it's going to be a fantastic weekend for me. I love it. But Harry Hardwick in the main event against Javier Garcia. Got Nick Bagley, Will Curry as well. We've got Charles Joyner versus Yannick Bahati. First time they fought at Cage Warriors Newcastle. I believe it ended in a draw after I think it was an eye poke from Charles Joyner. Stopped the fight in the third round, went to the scorecards. It was a draw. This should be a good one. They rematch straight away. Charles Joyner, a massive 205 pounder. I think he's they're 6'8" for 205 pounds light heavyweight. He's absolutely an animal, mate. I'm looking forward to this one against Yannick Bahati, very experienced. I expect Charles Joyner to get the win this time round and sort of put a stamp on it. But also, if you keep scrolling though, if you look down here, the featured prelim, or I think the featured prelim, or even opening up the card, we've got George Hardwick. If you're a Contender Series fan, you might recognise him. George Hardwick once upon a time, compete on the Contender Series. Didn't go his way that night, but he's still in Cage Warriors. And if he wins this fight, he'll set history as the most title defenses in 155-pound division in Cage Warriors this year. I think he's looking for his 4th title defense. So, yeah, as you can see, 3 successive, looking for his 4th one against Samuel Silva. If you're an American fan, you might know this guy because I believe he fought an LFA. So you might know this name. So, should be a good one. For me, a fantastic card. And it's a great warming up for the UFC. I don't know which one I'm looking forward to the most. I'll probably pick the Cage Warriors because I just love Cage Warriors. It's just full of great domestic fights. Should be a good one. Oscar, do you know any names?
I do remember George Hardwick from Contender Series. I remember a lot of hype coming on his side heading into it. And then I do remember Will Curry and Eli Aranov, who also competed on the Contender Series. Will Curry looked pretty good in this fight, but he did come up short. So I think the winner could for sure get a UFC call or could just get another shot at Contender Series. So, for anybody that is in my camp, not really knowing these names, these could be future guys on Contender Series. So watch out.
Yeah, keep a lookout. I think we've got some great names on the card. I think Charles Joyner could potentially be on the Contender Series next year if he wins this one, wins the next one. Then he's 6-1. I think I think the UFC will be him on the end of the phone. Training at TFT here in Sunderland. He's from Australia, I believe one of his parents is from Sunderland, so he stays over here, trains over here under the watchful eye of Andrew Fisher, who's coaching Mick Parkin this weekend in the UFC. So he's under a good camp. He's got a great coach behind him, and I feel like he's only on the end of the phone for Andrew Fisher in the UFC extended series shot. Mick Parkin went through there. I think he would accept that, and I feel like he would go on there. And I don't think there's too many 6'8", 205 pounders, are there? He's an absolute mammoth, mate. He's incredible. I'm looking forward to it. And obviously, you mentioned Nick Magley as well. He's on a win streak at the moment. If he wins this one, another prospect to look out for potentially for Contender Series next year. So keep an eye on that one. I think Harry Hardwick wins, and I believe Charles Joyner wins. Nick Bagley wins. Will Curry wins, and I believe George Hardwick wins. Some great matchups, so look forward to it. That's for a warm-up for the UFC. But let's get into the big boys. Let's talk about the big stage. UFC goes down in the O2 Arena. And as you can see, the main event, we've got Leon Edwards versus Sean Brady. Spectacular main event. It was initially meant to be Jack Della Maddalena, and I think stylistically that would have been better for the fans. But we got Sean Brady in. Just, Oscar, firstly, talk to me about the main event. It's a great replacement fight on, what is it, 5 weeks, 5 weeks notice? We like it. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I believe that Sean Brady certainly possesses the tools to give Leon a hard night. Leon's last fight was against Bilal Muhammad. He lost his title, but Leon was coming in injured. He had a back issue, and he was fighting at, 4 a.m. So he said that his body just wasn't working at its peak potential. So I believe Leon fighting at the correct time, healed up from the injury. I believe he can give Sean Brady problems. Sean Brady, the biggest win he has is Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns, let's face it, is past his best days. So I don't have the greatest confidence that Sean Brady is an elite welterweight at this point. His fight with the champion, Bilal Muhammad, that was a terrible outing for him. All of his takedown attempts were stuffed. And on the feet, he was finished by Bilal Muhammad, who is notoriously a decision machine. So I don't think Sean Brady is the most durable fighter. I don't think he reacts particularly well to getting hit. And Leon Edwards, if he does not get packed up the whole fight, which is what happened against Bilal, which is what happened against Usman, he needs to press forward a little more. And if he gets those combinations working, I think Sean Brady is going to have a tough night. There's going to be multiple instances. In fact, I think Sean Brady wins 2 rounds of this fight. But at the end of the day, I think Leon will do more damage on the feet. And the judges will score the rounds for him, even the rounds where he gets taken down. They're going to give him the rounds because he's doing damage on the feet. So the pick is Leon Edwards here. I don't feel great about it, but he has shown an ability to defend against grapplers before. That was just a horrible outing against Bilal Muhammad. So I think he's going to win this by a unanimous decision and get his momentum back.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. As I'm going to be in the arena, tickets were not cheap, so I'm hoping, obviously, the fight card delivers, and I think it will. I think we've got some fantastic fights, top to bottom of the card. As I talked about earlier, some domestically, great fights that we'll get into soon. In my opinion, it's a great main event. Two top 5, top 10 welterweights going at it in the O2 Arena in London. Having Leon Edwards there, obviously former champion, being able to, holding that welterweight strap once upon a time, and obviously beating, some great names like Usman and winning the belt. Now he takes on Sean Brady. After losing against Bilal Muhammad, he's going to want to kind of come back and, put his name back on the map a little bit. Everyone knows who Leon Edwards is, but he needs to kind of showcase that, he's still about, he can, still fight for that title. If this was the original opponent, Jack Della Maddalena, against him on this night, I think I would have full confidence that he would go on to win. I think that bet is a better matchup for him. Stylistically, I think on the feet, it would be entertaining for the watch, for the fans. And I think he could sort of, be able to have his way on the feet and, land his strike, get his work moving. And obviously, I don't think Jack would kind of shoot too much for a takedown. So he doesn't really kind of have to worry about that. We're looking at who he's got in front of him right now, and that's Sean Brady. If you look at his game, fantastic wrestler. I believe maybe the only one to kind of really stop that work, obviously, is that one loss was Bilal Muhammad. Bilal Muhammad would go on to knock him out, I believe, or finish him. And I do look at that, and that does, beg the question, if Bilal Muhammad can finish Sean Brady, what's Leon Edwards going to be able to do to him? But I think I look at what I've seen from Leon Edwards in his losses as well, is he doesn't really deal with a lot of pressure, very well. Obviously, we've seen with Bilal Muhammad, a lot of pressure up against the fence is just constant wrestling. And I expect the same game plan for Sean Brady. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure, pinning Leon Edwards up against the fence and not letting him sort of get a forward step or even take the center ring. I think Sean Brady's going to get going early, and I think he's going to wrestle very, very quick. I think this one for the UK fans, it could be quite boring. Same as the last one where obviously it's 5 a.m., 6 a.m., and we were watching Bilal Muhammad wrestle our champion out of weight and taking the belt away. I think this could be quite similar. I see it going down that route. I think Sean Brady is going to get working. He's going to get working really quick. I think the first 2 rounds, I think it will be Leon Edwards, stuffing takedowns. I think it's going to be hard to, Leon's going to be fresh. I think he's going to be able to defend the takedowns. But once it gets to the third and the fourth and the fifth, and it's just relentless pressure over and over again, I think that's when the openings will start coming out. And the game with Sean Brady is going to eventually take Leon Edwards down. I don't think he'll submit him. I think it will be a decision victory for Sean Brady, quite decisively.
Yeah, that is the told you so fight of the week right there. And I say we move on to this spectacular co-main event at light heavyweight.
Absolutely, this is my favorite fight on the card by a country mile. I just love the matchup. Carlos Ulberg. If you look at Carlos Ulberg's loss against Kenny Dinchenko, which was years ago now in 2021. After that fight, you might have thought this guy, what is he, 4-0 now? He just got knocked out by a Kenny Dinchenko who at the time was decent, but sort of faded off. You probably thought maybe this guy can't make it to the top where we thought he could have. He had a lot of pressure of him going into that fight. And I look back at it now and I think maybe that loss was, quite good for him because he was undefeated. There was a lot of pressure, a lot of hype for him. I feel like maybe that took a little bit off his shoulders and, a bit of release. I think ideally he would like to have, kept that. But I think in the long run, I think it took a lot off his shoulders. He, obviously, training with, Adesanya, there was so much hype with him. Everyone loved him, the striking game, and he sort of got knocked out, got tired. I think he wanted a great first impression, and it backfired completely. But since then, has been looking fantastic, Oscar. Everyone knows about, obviously, Carlos Ulberg coming off a win against Volkan Oezdemir and a big win against Alonzo Menefield, knocking them out. Now he takes on former title contender and holder, I believe, Jan Blachowicz, who will look to kind of continue his run at 42 years of age. And he said at Media Week this weekend for UFC London that he wants to break Randy Couture's record and be the oldest champion inside the UFC. Do I think that's realistic? I'm not too sure. He's stepping in there with a guy who's a lot younger than Carlos Ulberg, who will be a lot quicker when it comes to the striking. It's just whether Jan Blachowicz can get his game going and going his full game. And I feel like if we look back at a sort of a similar matchup, his teammate, Jan Blachowicz versus Adesanya. Adesanya went in there and sort of stopped the momentum. He went in there putting his full game on, and he won. He beat Adesanya. And that's why I'm picking Jan Blachowicz in this fight. I think if you look at Jan, I don't think he will get knocked out by Carlos Ulberg. I think there might be some tricky positions. I think he might get clipped a few times. Obviously, Carlos is going to be a lot quicker. But if you look at maybe, the power, I think if you look at brute strength, I think Jan Blachowicz has got that dad power as well. And I think he could probably, land a few strikes. He's not going to beat Carlos Ulberg to the punch. Never. Absolutely not. He's always going to have to look to counter on maybe and catch him. But the wrestling of Jan Blachowicz as well, I think, is very underrated. I think he can get that going early. I see Jan Blachowicz winning this fight. It says 3-5 rounds, which is 3-5s. So I see Jan Blachowicz winning this one. I'm not sure how. I don't think he submits him. I don't think he might ground and pound him. I think we're looking at a decision.
I think a lot of this comes down to age. If this was a prime Jan Blachowicz, the man that, as you said, beat Adesanya, I would pick Jan Blachowicz with a lot of confidence here because Carlos Ulberg has not done too much to show that he's ready for prime time. He fought Alonzo Menifield, which Alonzo Menifield just went fought to the death with like a 3-0 fighter a month ago. So that has not aged well. Then he fought Volkan Ozdemir. Volkan Ozdemir is a good fighter, but we've seen his limitations. He's not the best out there. So this is a big step up. But honestly, with Jan Blachowicz, his last fight happened to be the fight with who was it again? I believe it was it? I think it was Rakic. No, it was not Rakic. He got the title shot beating Rakic. Then he fought Magomed Ankalaev to a draw, which is a major claim if he were to win this fight. But Jan Blachowicz, I just don't like that he's coming off the double shoulder surgery. And Carlos Ulberg, on the other hand, a lot of people talk about him like he's this really young up and comer. He's about to be 35 in like next year. So 35 is the age when people start getting called old. So I think Ulberg is perfectly capable of putting on a clean striking performance against Jan. We've seen Jan go for takedowns and whatnot. Like we saw the Alex Pereira fight, but there's only so much he can do out there. I just think he's going to have to strike with Ulberg for extended periods, and it's not going to go well for him with the speed disadvantage.
Yeah, as I mentioned, obviously Jan Blachowicz is never going to beat Carlos Ulberg to the punch. Carlos quite quick striker. He's got a big frame on him. Obviously, that's been his experience throughout his career. You know, kickboxing. He's going to be the better man on the feet. Obviously, I've got Jan Blachowicz. You've got Carlos Ulberg. Interesting to see how that plays out in the co-main event. Let's talk about the other fight: Kevin Holland versus Gunnar Nelson. Another great matchup for the UK fans. Obviously, we've got Gunnar Nelson, who basically sort of is, you know, a UK fighter because it feels like every time he comes to London or, you know, this man's on the card. And I can say this probably with, you know, every fan. We love Gunnar Nelson. You know, goes in there. He's got a great, you know, style. Everyone loves it. He's entertaining. Obviously, his grappling is fantastic. Everyone loves, you know, a bit of the karate stance. He's taken on Kevin Holland, who is a little bit younger, has been very much more very active, you know, compared to Gunnar Nelson. Gunnar Nelson, I think, last fought maybe 2023. He sort of takes these big breaks a lot. He's coming off 2 wins back to back, but if you look at them 2 wins, Soto and Brian Barberena, you know, to me, you know, them 2 were, you know, not great. If you look at Kevin Holland, 2 losses against Roman Dolidze and Rene de Riddler. So if you look at the competition that they've been fighting recently, you got to kind of, I believe you've got to kind of pick Kevin Holland in this position. I think Kevin, obviously, you know, being a BJJ black belt, should be able to, you know, not get submitted in this fight against Gunnar Nelson. I know Gunnar Nelson's probably better on the grappling. If they had a straight grappling fight, I think Gunnar Nelson would be able to, you know, submit him. But I think in terms of MMA, I think Kevin Holland would be able to keep it. You know, keep not get submitted basically, and on the feet, you know, he's very powerful, he's very awkward. Who knows what could happen? But I've got Kevin Holland in this spot, but again, don't know how.
Yeah, this is a very hard fight to pick because you have Kevin Holland, who has gone just with a very unreliable run, let's say, when it comes to winning. He does show up, there's no doubt about it, but there's been many times where he has these horrible performances, and most of these bad performances are against grapplers, guys that will take him down. We're talking about Marvin Vittori, Brendan Allen back in the day, Roman Dolidze, as you said. So Gunnar Nelson has what it takes to give Kevin Holland tons of trouble. And with Kevin Holland, if you have listened to recent interviews of his, he has this very nonchalant attitude, doesn't really care, just wants to get paid. It's all about the money for him. And with Gunnar Nelson, this is not a sport where he's not getting a lot of money for this. He's doing this just for the sake of fighting, basically. That's why he's super inactive. and I think he trains in jiu-jitsu all the time, more than Kevin Holland does, that's for sure. So I think Gunnar is going to get an early trip, and Kevin Holland in his last fight gave up his back pretty easily against De Ridder after a little bit of ground and pound. I think Gunnar Nelson has better technique than De Ridder on the ground, so I think Gunnar Nelson submits him. I'll say round one. I think Gunnar Nelson shows that you can't mess around in this game, which Kevin Holland, in my opinion, is messing around. In fact, if his last fight, he said he barely trained for it, didn't really care. I think Gunnar Nelson cares a lot more than Kevin Holland.
Yeah, should be a good one. I'm looking forward to it. Another great one for the UK fans on the main card as well. Two fighters, obviously, outside of the UK, but I think the fans will love this one. It's going to be entertaining from start to finish. Next one, we got Molly McCann against a Brazilian woman coming in, I believe, on her debut inside the UFC. A short notice fight for her. She fought in a contender series, but now make her debut. She's 11-1, and she's taken on Molly McCann, who Molly McCann's never going to get to the title shot. She's never going to be top 5 material. But you know what you're going to get from Molly McCann, and that's a dogfight. She'll go in there, she will fight with her heart, and she will try and get the win by any means necessary. Oscar, a tough spot, I feel like, for Molly McCann, because obviously we know her skill set. She's been looking to try and improve, but it's sort of, not happening. Does she win against the Brazilian Alexia?
I think that Molly McCann may be past her best days. Her last performance against Bruna Brazil was eye-opening. She went down to strawweight after struggling at flyweight. She looked good, got the armbar in her strawweight debut. Then she fought to Bruna Brazil. Bruna Brazil, she may be part of the fighting nerds, but she's no fighting nerd, She's not a menace in there. She doesn't have this crazy skill set. And she gave Molly so much trouble. In fact, I think she finished her with a body kick. So I didn't like that performance at all. Alexia Tainara, I wouldn't say she's an elite talent, but she does have technical striking that she showed on Contender Series. I think Molly McCann might struggle to get a couple of takedowns here against Alexia, who I think is a little more physical. So I think Alexia wins a decision here. Just I think she's going to be the matador against the bull that is Molly here. I just think she strikes that distance to get a decision.
Yeah, I'd love to see Molly McCann get it done this weekend. You talked about Alexia, being more of, a technical striker. Maybe we could see Molly McCann being frustrated in the third round, not be able to get, sort of get into her. If Molly McCann sort of get her boxing going, we know how good she could be on the feet. But as you mentioned, Alexia has the reach advantage as well by a few inches. So could be tough to get inside. I expect the Brazilian to kind of stay at range and be able to go, as you talked about, being the matador, the rage and bull and Molly McCann sort of coming forward, looking to throw some haymakers. So I think the Brazilian wins, stays at range and sort of picks her apart. Should be a good one, though, in that one. They're all good. Pretty much they're all good. We've got some great fights on this card. Next one, though, is a great one once again. Jordan Vucenic versus Chris Duncan. We got England versus Scotland. Notoriously, not really a rivalry. In terms of football, though, if England plays Scotland, it's pretty, pretty much a rivalry. We want to beat Scotland. They want to beat England. It's all about egos and all that stuff. Fighting, though, not really. I think everyone works together in the UK and sort of helps everyone gets better. But Jordan Vucenic's going to want to beat Chris Duncan to prove he's the best in 155 pounds in the UK. I think that's what this one is about. Domestically proving they're the best at lightweight. This is a fantastic fight. Jordan Vucenic training, I believe, maybe like Northampton, I think, at BST, Blood, Sweat, Tears, I believe. And obviously, Chris Duncan, he trains out of ATT and obviously in Scotland as well, in his native Scotland. If you look at this fight, I think this is a great matchup to produce fireworks, a great fight. I think this is my pick probably for fight of the night as well. Vucenic is a scrapper. Chris Duncan, a scrapper that hits very, very hard. This one, I think we're going to see 3 rounds, and I think both men are going to be exhausted. But I'm in the favour of Chris Duncan. I think what we've seen inside the UFC thus far, as you can see there, 3-1 inside the UFC. Bocenic is a moderate favourite according to Tapology, which I'm quite surprised about. I think we've seen, some decent amount from Chris Duncan inside the UFC. Obviously, got a win in his last fight against Oki, where he got that guillotine, put him out cold. If you look at his only loss, it was Emmanuel Torres, where he got submitted. I do believe Jordan Bocenic probably won't be able to submit Chris Duncan. Other than that, though, if you look at his loss against Boroshev, he did get knocked out bad. I don't see Bocenic knocking him out. I think I've got Duncan in this one. I think he's got a more better all-round game than Jordan Bocenic. It's a tough one for Jordan Bocenic because I do really like him. He was fantastic on Cage Warriors, but I think Chris Duncan's had a little bit more inside the UFC, had a little bit more experience, knows what the competition's like. I think he gets it done against Jordan Bocenic.
I'm actually taking Jordan here. I think Chris Duncan has had a pretty tough time in the UFC, even non-contenders. As you said, he got knocked out. I feel that his striking defense is lacking a little bit. And in the Manuel Torres fight, he was completely just manhandled out there. That was a tough look. And we know he's trying to get better. He's at ATT grappling with the best of them, with Gamrot, Ifloev, Poirier. So he's trying to improve, but I don't know if he's made those improvements yet. And for Jordan, he impressed me so much in his debut against Guram Kutateladze, who is a fantastic fighter. And he gave him hell in that fight. He was able to hurt him bad many times. And I think he can hurt Chris Duncan bad in this fight. I think he's going to knock him out in round 2. I think Chris, if he wins, he has to wrestle the entire time. But I don't know if that's going to work too well for him. I think Jordan is going to beat him to the punch, and he's got more durability. And with this rowdy crowd, I just think they're going to throw down, and Jordan gets the best of him.
Yeah, this is going to be an absolute banger. So many picks for fight tonight in this one. Next one as well could be potential fight tonight as well. Nathaniel Wood versus Morgan Charrier. This one, I think, is a great matchup for both fighters. I think if you look at Morgan, loves to strike, loves to be very active on the feet. Nathaniel Wood, I think, would entertain a striking matchup over like a bit of a wrestling or grappling matchup. But the thing is, I think what's different about these two is I think Nathaniel Woods, I believe, has definitely got the better game in terms of being able to wrestle and sort of mix it all up. And I think that could be the difference on the night between Nathaniel Wood and Morgan Charrier. I expect Nathaniel Wood to be good on the feet. I think he's very quick as well. The body work, the calf kicks that Nathaniel Wood can produce could be a problem for Morgan. But I think it's going to be the game of Nathaniel Wood mixing it up, working with Brad Pickett, Great Britain top team. Brad Pickett was a fantastic wrestler in MMA. Took down Demetrius Johnson, beat Demetrius Johnson. I think he's in safe hands with Brad Pickett. Been there for a while now, sort of a product of Brad Pickett, sort of the second coming of Brad Pickett, should we say. I expect him to beat Morgan Charrier. I think he's got a better all-around game, sort of similar to what I said with Chris Duncan. I expect Nathaniel Wood being better, on the grappling than Morgan Charrier. And I think he's going to mix up very well and sort of not being able. I think it'll be the third round, and Morgan's going to be very undecisive and not knowing what's coming from Nathaniel Wood.
Yeah, for me, this comes down to the high volume striking of Nathaniel here. Morgan Charrier always picks his shot, waits for counters, and that can pay off if you knock the guy out. But if you don't knock the guy out, you could be left out losing a decision because your opponent landed more than you. And I think that's going to be the case here with Nathaniel Wood. I feel like he's had a couple of fights that could have gone his way, fights where he got fouled a lot. And I think he's going to just get back to winning form here. And as you mentioned, the grappling is for sure an advantage here. Morgan's takedown defense has gotten a little better, as he showed against Chepe Mariscal. But the fact that he's going to be thinking about the takedown is definitely going to mess with his striking here. So Nathaniel Wood all the way. He should not be the underdog, if you ask me.
Yeah, completely agree. Had a lot more fights inside the UFC than Morgan as well. 8-3. Should be a good one. Next one, we've got Jai Herbert, Chris Padilla. If you're looking at Jai Herbert, this man could have done the unthinkable a few years ago when he fought Ilia Topuria in the UFC, and I believe that was at London as well, maybe, or maybe Manchester.
Yes, it was.
That guy could have done the unthinkable because in that fight, he knocked down and hurt Ilia in that fight. Could you imagine if Jai Herbert knocks him out? What could have been? If we're looking at MMA now, it could have been totally different.
100%, man. We could have Volkanovski as this super long reigning champion. Who knows, man? Yeah, and I remember the interview you did with Jai Herbert. Jai Herbert couldn't even pronounce his name. Now we all know Ilia Taporia's name. Little did Jai Herbert know the importance of that fight, but hey, he can always have that feather in his cap. And for Chris Padilla, this is a guy that has really as I feel like he's gonna beat a lot of these like guys that they bring in on short notice, because he has like pretty clean boxing. He can grapple here and there, but I just don't see him beating a guy as good as Jai Herbert, a guy who's big for the weight class like that. I feel like Jai Herbert has so much going for him here. He can bully Chris Padilla in the clinch, and at distance, he's going to win this fight 9 out of 10 times, if you ask me. So I think this is a kind of a layup for Jai Herbert here to show how good he is on home soil.
Yeah, if you look at Jai's last 5 fights, some great results in there. You know, he's had 2 losses and a draw in the mix of it, but I think there's some really good results that he can sort of bring some momentum in. That fight with Farasiam, I think, was close. A draw with Ludovic Klein, and obviously a loss against Ilia Taporia. Some losses and a draw in there, that mix up, I think he can really go in here and bring some momentum. And as you talked about, Chris being, sort of a, boxer, I think that favors Jai. No threat and a takedown. He can sort of go in there, and you talked about the frame and the size of Jai. I think Jai can clip Chris early. I think we see a knockout quite early on with Jai. He's got that power. I'm just hoping he don't make the same mistake as he did against Ilia. I think he will hit him clean and he'll finish the fight against Chris. 15-6, been around for a long time. Starting to he made his UFC career late, but here we are. He's in the UFC, and that's what the dreams are made of. Next one, we've got a flyweight. Lonia Kavanagh, arguably, probably one of the best flyweights. One of the best prospects that we have coming out of the UK. Lonia Kavanagh is fantastic. Another product of Brad Pickett and his team over there. Came over on extended series, looked spectacular, won that fight, came inside the UFC. I think his first fight he went to decision, but just sort of showing a bit more of his game, going the 15 minutes inside the UFC, sort of getting that cage experience. And now he takes on Felipe dos Santos, and as you can see, he's a moderate favorite. If you look at this year, I don't want to jinx it, touch wood, notoriously, the undefeated guys are losing their O this year, Oscar. Do you expect Lonia Kavanagh to keep that O, though?
I think he does here, but Felipe dos Santos is actually the younger guy here, so he could make improvements. He's working with the Charles Oliveira camp, which has been proven to be very great for having the guys make improvements. And for Lonia Kavanagh, I think he's got the speed advantage here, probably the power advantage, but I say the grappling goes to Felipe dos Santos. But even then, I want to say his grappling is excellent. His last fight, he got controlled significantly by Andre Lima. That's how he lost that fight. And in other fights, he's not shown the best of grappling. So the one thing he needs to use to win here, I don't think he's that great at. While you got Lonia Kavanagh, who's a better athlete, in my opinion, who's going to beat Felipe to the punch here. So I think Kavanagh is the rightful favorite.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think Lonia Kavanagh goes in there. Looks exciting. Not too sure how it plays out, but you mentioned obviously Lonia Kavanagh being very quick, being very powerful for a flyweight. He hits very hard, athletic, can move really well, as every flyweight can move really well. But should be good. Looking forward to that one. I expect Lonia Kavanagh to get the win as well. Next one, we've got a battle between heavyweights. This one I feel like is, we talk about some sloppy heavyweights every week maybe, but this one I think is the total opposite. I think they're both, quite lean. This one, Marcin Tybura, top 10, and obviously Mick Parkin to get in to that top 10. Once upon a time, there was a man that headlined the O2 Arena and fought Marcin Tybura. That man was Tom Aspinall. Now his training partner, a very good friend of his, Mick Parkin, is looking to do the same, although he's not headlining it, but he's on the, he's on the prelims. And again, another fantastic fight for the O2 Arena to erupt. Mick Parkin fighting out of Sunderland. and he takes on Marcin Tybura, who's experienced, no doubt about it, has had a lot of fights inside the UFC, has beat some really, really good guys. Can he beat Mick Parkin, who, if we look at it, is a next generation heavyweight, slim, very quick on the feet, can grapple? Oscar, this one for me is a tough one to call. Mick Parkin coming up against, obviously his hardest test to date against Marcin Tybura. Can he do the same feat as his once good friend and training partner Tom Aspinall did?
I think one of the major differences between Mick and Tom Aspinall is that Tom Aspinall is a lot quicker and hits like a Mack truck, man. I hate to say it, but Mick is not one of these heavyweights with that one hitter quitter power, which is actually an advantage because he's not going to tire you out trying to knock these guys out right away. So he can go the distance here. But Marcin Tybura is another man that's very comfortable going the distance. He's not afraid to hold you up against the cage, make the fight boring, wear you out that way. I think that game plan has just been so proven, and he's been such a great gatekeeper in the UFC, man. If you knock out Marcin, you're going to be a title contender. But for Mick Parkin, he's 29, which is pretty young for a heavyweight. So I'm not quite sure he's there yet. None of his wins have told me that that this guy is 100% a contender at this moment. I think he could be contender in the future, but I'm not sure it's right now. I think Marcin Tybura is going to get a few takedowns here, a lot of clinch control time. And on the feet, I think it's going to be very close. So I think Marcin wins a split decision here. But, hey, we could see Mick Parkin surprises.
Yeah, absolutely. Mick Parkin being a product of Rise and Conquer. A little shout out to them. A little MMA promotion that I work for here in Sunderland, England. They had an event, not the last weekend, just gone in Sunderland, England. It was a fantastic event. I love working for them. So he's a product of them, got built up, came off there, went to the contending series, won. And now he looks to make it 5-0 inside the UFC, which is quite crazy. It feels like yesterday since he had that shot in the contender series, and now he's 4-0, 5-0. A big performance for him last time out against Lucas Brzezinski, but I think Lucas, the Polish, was quite chinnable. I think Mick Parkin done what he had to do in that fight. He looked good. I think it should be good. If you look at Brzezinski and Marcin Tybura, polar opposite. I think it's a completely different fight. It's a hard fight. You mentioned Mick not being that one hit quitter guy, and I think that's going to pay factor for him in this fight. I think Mick gets it done. It's going to be a gritty performance from both of them. I think this one's going to be a tough one to call. I'm going Mick, and I'm going decision. I think he gets it done. I think he looks impressive, and he'll make that top 10, and it's going to probably get a little bit awkward. If he keeps on winning between him and Tom. I think they've already spoken.
Oh, yeah, we could have a new. This could be the next Aljamain and Marab situation we could have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they've probably already spoke about it. And I think the UFC posted a video, UFC Europe posted a video, and Tom Aspinall said that Mick Parkin, if he wins, he's going to have to go to light heavyweight. Because he's smaller.
That'd be funny, yeah. All right, the next fight, Andre Pulyev versus CLD, Christian Leroy Duncan. This, I think, is a great fight for CLD. He had a tough couple fights, and I think the UFC has given him like a refresh here against Pulyev, who had a contender series fight, but just not overly impressive anywhere. The striking is where he's going to try to get this done, and it's just not going to work out for him. I think Christian Leroy Duncan, even if he wants to, he can even take him down and win this fight. I just don't see a world where Leroy Duncan loses a striking battle here. And in fact, I'm going to pick him to win by knockout in round 1.
Yeah, I like CLD in this position. CLD kind of reminds me of when he came inside the UFC, he was a flashy striker. Reminds me of when Michel Pereira sort of came inside the UFC. Very flashy, very unorthodox. He wasn't doing all these front flips or anything like that. But there was a point where Michel Pereira lost and sort of elevated his game a lot more. And I felt like that loss was sort of what he needed. And I think that's going to be sort of similar with CLD, but in his last performance against Gregory Rodriguez, I think from now he's going to really start to put it all together. Sort of work out what his MMA game is all about. He's a heavy favorite. I back that as well. If you look at his opponent, he's a big guy as well, 6'4". I think CLD gets it done. I think if you look at his 2 wins inside the UFC, he's got finishes. So I'm looking forward to seeing him get it done this weekend in front of his sort of, he has 3 wins inside the UFC, but that Dosco fight was a bit of a knee injury. But other than that, he's got some flashy finishes. I expect big things from CLD. I think he goes in there, knocks the Russian out, and makes the fans go mental in London. Should be a good one. Next one though, we've got Shanna Bannon versus Pooja Tomar. Shanna Bannon, last time I went to the UFC O2 Arena, she was on the same card, and I got to watch her that night. She'd lost. Ultimately, what I've seen from her inside the UFC, I've not really been too impressed as of yet. I feel like we need to see something a little bit better. I think she got into the UFC when she was 5-0. I know she was friends with Molly McCann, trains with Molly McCann. I know she trains out of Paddy Holohan's martial arts over in Ireland. She's got skills, definitely on the feet. I think it's the grappling side. I think where she struggles. Oscar, who have you got in this one? For me, Shauna Bannon, not too impressed yet. Pooja Tomar, this one for me could be a flip 'em.
Honestly, I'm very confident on Shana Ben here just because I think Pooja is super limited. Her debut, that was a robbery, man. I didn't think she won that fight at all. She got outstruck in 2 of those rounds quite comfortably. So she's a brawler. That's how she won her last fight. She just threw everything she had at her opponent. And even then, she got outstruck. And she's 31. So this is not like some great prospect we're talking about here. 9-4 record. I think Shanna Bannon is just getting started. Could show improvements potentially in this fight. I just think she has a much more refined striking background. Sure, she's not looked great so far, but I think those women were probably better than Pooja Tomar, if you ask me.
Arguably, yes. Absolutely agree. I will pick Shannon. I think she gets it done. Maybe another split decision incoming for Shana. Let's see how she gets it done. This one as well is a fantastic one for me. I've got Colin Loughran's jersey, in my wardrobe. I will be wearing that on the night for this one. It's going to be great. I love Colin. I think he's fantastic. 9-2 record. He had a fantastic career outside of the UFC in the Cage Warriors, winning belts in Rome, looking fantastic, walking the walk, talking the talk. Inside the UFC, though, I got to admit, it sort of fizzled out a little bit. He's had them 2 losses. Last one, I think, was a tough one for him to take. Obviously losing against a Jake Hadley, who's now gone on to get released and now signs for the PFL. For me, that was a tough one to take. It was on short notice as well. Jake Hadley came in at short notice, beat Colin Loughran. I think it's been a little bit disappointing since he came inside the UFC. I think for me, that's because I had big expectations because outside the UFC, he was undefeated. He was beating everyone. He was showcasing a lot in his game. He takes on Nathan Fletcher, who obviously came off the Ultimate Fighter. He's had his debut already. Arm triangle choked him. The thing is with Nathan Fletcher, he comes out of a gym who are notoriously good at grappling. Next generation MMA Liverpool. Obviously, they have Paddy Pimlet. They have Shem Rock. If you don't know who Shem Rock is, get to know. Potentially could be in the UFC soon as well. Who knows? But they're really good at grappling. Probably one of the best gyms that we have in the UK for grappling, just in terms of straight grappling, one of the best. This one, a tough one for me to call. And I feel like I've got to kind of speak about what I've seen thus far inside the UFC. They've actually fought before, which was on the amateur scene. And I believe Nathan Fletcher got the victory that night as well. That was in 2018. There we are. Nathan Fletcher got the victory that night. So they've fought before. Amateurs, though, as they go into professional scene, totally different game. They both grew up in this game. Now they're inside the UFC, which is quite a good story to see. I think I've seen. I don't know how to go for this one. But Oscar, I'm going to throw it over to you. I think he might have left. He has. So now he's put me in a weird position now. Now I've got time to say what I predict. I think I'm going to go with Colin. I think he has showcased the grappling. I think he'll be able to kind of withstand the grappling and the wrestling threat of Nathan Fletcher. I think Nathan Fletcher is a fantastic grappler. Obviously, I talked about the gym that he comes out with. I think if this was a submission only fight, I think Nathan Fletcher could probably have be the better man out of two and potentially submit Cowland, but it's an MMA fight, and I think Colin is good at mixing it up. We've seen that outside the UFC. I've seen that outside the UFC. If he gets on top and full mounts you, it's pretty much a wrap at that point. The striking exchanges could be interesting. I think Cowland does get hit quite a lot. He's very susceptible of getting caught quite clean. This one, tough one for me to call, but I'm going with the Irishman by a slight edge. I think he gets the job done. This is a big one for him.
I'm going to have to agree with you. I think Keelan Lochran has shown an ability to have a high volume striking game plan. Showed it against Angel Pacheco out there. And as you said, the fact that he brawls, he does get hit in there, but I'm not quite sure that Nathan is going to be able to fire back with something to deter Keelan. I think he's going to keep on walking forward. He's a very stubborn guy out there, and I don't think he's going to let Fletcher get too much grappling going here. In fact, I do like Lochran's wrestling. I like the fact that he's at a great camp in Arizona right now, training with Cejudo, and who I think is Mario Batista there? No, Mario Batista is not there, but he's training with Alatang Lee as well. So I do like the fact that he's gone out of his way to try to improve in a new setting while he's still young. So I think he's going to come out looking even better, and I think he wins a decision here. I think he's going to be able to stop the grappling from Fletcher and win on the feet.
Yeah, could be a tough one to call on tonight. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be getting there early to see this one. This one I can't miss. This one for me is my main event. I have to watch this one. This one and the Mick Parkin fight is the one that I'm obviously keeping the eye on very, very closely. Next one though, the first fight of the year, we've got Guram Kutalaze versus Kyle Fernandez. Guram, always good to see him. We know how good his striking is. Mixes up really well. He takes on a Brazilian who's 9-2 inside his MMA career and 1-1 inside the UFC. Guram, a very heavy favorite according to Tapology. Oscar, is that justified? He's 33 years of age. The other guy is 30. Who gets a victory?
I really like Guram Kutateladze here. He's had a very interesting UFC career. The debut was against a guy in the top 10 right now in Mateusz Gamrot, and he won that fight. It was a split decision at the time that even he thought he lost, but still, he shows that he can fight with the best of them. I just feel like he's been very inactive. He had a couple of tough losses. I feel like the loss to Elvis Brenner really showed us his limitations. That was a fight where he was winning, and then he got knocked out in round 3 of the fight. He just showed his cardio is not too great, and his chin is not too great. So, yeah, he's not going to fight for the title, but I think he's going to have a lot of fun fights against guys like Kyle Fernandez. Fernandez is a very rangy fighter out there, but I just don't think he has the same kind of punching power and wrestling that Guram Kutateladze has. Kyle Fernandez lost to Marcia Casey back when Marcia Casey was putting people to sleep in the O2 Arena with his wrestling. And I think Guram can out wrestle Kyle Fernandez here. And even on the feet, I think he does just fine here. So I think he's a very reasonably the heavy favorite here.
Yeah, I like Guram in his position as well. As we talked about, a man earlier, Jordan Vucenic, when he did get the split decision that night. I believe it was a split decision anyway. Jordan Vucenic put on a good fight. Guram put on a good fight. Actually, it was a unanimous decision. It was a great fight to watch. I expect Guram Kutateladze to keep the momentum off the back of the win against Jordan Vucenic, and he beats the Brazilian Kyle Fernandez. Should be a good one to start off the card. If you're our fan, you're making sure you're getting there early because there are fights down here that you do not want to miss. Oscar, talk to me about the card in full. I know this one will be quite early for you. It's good to have UFC fans in the arena. Good to have fans in the arena in general. Should be a good rowdy one. Oscar, which one are you looking forward to? What fight are you looking forward to the most?
Yeah, I really love Jan Blachowicz versus Carlos Ulberg, but as I said, my pick for fight of the night is Chris Duncan versus Jordan Vucenic. That is going to be fireworks all the way through. Both guys have many knockouts on their resumes, and they love to entertain the crowd, even to their detriment. So I say you look out for that one on the main card. And yeah, as we said, there's so much to love on this card. The UFC went out of their way to put the best European talent on this card, and I really applaud their effort here.
Absolutely agree. Should be a good one for the UFC fans. Should be a good one for me. As I mentioned, I'll be in the arena, spend some good money to watch this fight night. So I'm looking forward to it. For me, my fight of the night will probably be. I like Jordan Vucenic, Chris Duncan, but I want to be different as well. I'll go. I think Nathaniel Wood, Morgan Shari. I think that's an easy one to pick as well. There's so many fights to look forward to. I'll go with Calvin Knocker and Nathan Fletcher. I think the second fight of the evening should be a good one to watch. Maybe not. Maybe my pick for the fight tonight. I didn't want to choose Nathaniel Wood versus Morgan Shari because I think that one could be too easy to pick. That is definitely going to deliver. Should be a good one though. Jan Blachowicz and Carlos Ulberg in the co-main event. Sorry, Leon Edwards versus Sean Brady in the main event. We got a good fight card coming up this weekend, ladies and gentlemen. Oscar, that's pretty much it. How should we send them off?
Yeah, this was a great show for you guys. This is a very easy card to break down, if you ask me, with the great talent. And we'll be back next week to recap that all.
Absolutely. I'm not too sure if we have any UFC next week. I'll have a look. But
we do. It is UFC Mexico Day. So your home country to my home country, Mexico, and Brandon Moreno versus Steve Erceg. That's a great main event. And just like they did with England, they're gonna fill it with epic Mexican talent. So yeah, international flavors coming from the UFC, and you gotta love it.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got Raul Rosas, Kevin Gastelum in the card. Should be a good one. But make sure you watch UFC London this weekend. We'll recap it next week, as Oscar talked about, and we'll talk about UFC Mexico, Brandon Moreno in the main event against Steve Erceg. A flyweight banger. Should entertain. We'll catch you all then. Thank you very much for joining us. Enjoy.